Hello, everybody, and welcome to an Nightcap stream. We are going to be discussing and reviewing our recent playthrough of Resident Evil 4 Remake. We are joined, as always, with my guest Squirrelies, who is with me through the thick and thin, through all of the ups and downs and highs and lows of this gameplay experience. And
And
we're
bear
just going to
traps.
be bear traps. So we're just going to be discussing our experience with this game, the goods, the bads, the all of the things. So we've got a little gameplay that's going to be playing as we discuss. But yeah, thank you, Squirrelies, for joining me tonight. And where do you want to begin with this thing? This frightful
Oh,
experience that was the remake of Resident Evil 4.
where would I want to begin? I think I think that the overall it's a great game. Um, but I have to say, as an enjoyer of other games that have received pretty brutal criticism and critiquing lately, um, I'm surprised that it got like a lot of perfect scores.
Yeah, like so the whoa, what happened there? Games like Starfield, games like what's another one that kind of got beaten up, but those games got
There was a little bit of controversy about the Armored Core, but not as much. It seemed that resolved pretty quick.
but yeah, I mean, your point, this one got a perfect score by a lot of people saying that this was a perfect game, and I would say there are many things about this game that keep it from being perfect or a 10 out of 10, or and I know we've discussed this before, the arbitrary number scoring that a lot
Yeah.
of review journos and stuff give it. Like, I know you and I both are not huge fans of the number scoring, but um, it's very curious why they would look at this game and say, yeah, this is a 10, which to me, a 10 should be like, this is a masterpiece. And I can't say there's any one thing in particular about this game that is a masterpiece. There are some things about the game that are good, but I wouldn't point to anything that's a masterpiece.
Well, I think with a masterpiece, you like one of the primary things you absolutely have to make sure is perfect is the gameplay, and that's I think I would say most of my criticisms are rooted in the gameplay itself, the gameplay design. Sometimes I feel like they get it right, and sometimes they don't. And the problem is at least as I mean, to summarize my criticisms succinctly, sometimes they want this to be an action game, and sometimes they want this to be a horror game, and they don't do a good job of communicating to you when that is. Because in an action game, you don't have to worry about resource management. You don't have to worry about there's a lot of things you don't have to worry about. But in a survival horror game, there are things you have to worry about. Enemy management, um, like enemies. There are many parts in the game, and I think we're actually watching one of those parts right now. Enemies just continue to spawn until you achieve some sort of goal, and then there's some kind of a trigger. You discover something, you push a button, you open a door, and then enemies stop spawning.
Right.
And that's a great way for you to get your resources drained in a game where that matters a lot. That runs, and without players knowing that, it's hard to make an informed decision. So, um,
Right. There were
but
many times in this game where we are like, where you and I together, obviously I was the one playing, but it was like,
yeah,
what do we do here? Do we run or do we stay and fight? Because
if
I'm
you
draining.
run, you'll eventually get you know what? If they just keep spawning, you're going to get overwhelmed,
Right.
right? You can't. It's not like you have great CC. I you don't have a great way of like managing your enemy's movement to you. You can shoot them in the legs, you can kill guys, but the reality is once you're doing that, you're wasting your resources, maybe, or you're not. Who knows?
Right. And in particular with this game, because we saw this in our first few episodes that historically in these games it's go for the head, pop their heads, they're done. Even in the what is it? What was it? Shaun of the Dead, where it's like destroy the brain. That's how you take out zombies. And so this is kind of like baked in historical reference that we have.
Yeah.
But in this game, it's like, no, the chat was constantly telling us like, stop shooting in the head. Don't shoot
Shoot
in
the
the head.
knee. Shoot the
Shoot the
knee.
limbs,
Yeah.
and then do your Jean Claude Van Damme roundhouse kick. Like,
Yeah.
so this game is breaking, kind of forces you to play differently because it's not what you're used to.
And that's okay. There's good reason, right? Ultimately, it's pretty obvious. Like the brain is dead, and really, what's going on? Like the parasite's controlling it. That's an innovation, a good, interesting thing. There's a good story reason why that's so, right? So that's I would say that's good design. That's good for the survival horror. That's good design. You can't just get real good at popping them in the noggin and then moving on. That's not going to work here, because if you could, then you just get really good at that, and you never overwhelmed. You can just one shot every enemy. You've got 7 kills, and how many shots do you have in the pistols? At 7 or 9 shots? Oh, 18.
18.
Yeah, right. 18 kills in your gun at any one time. That's like, okay, fair enough. How do you apply the pressure for somebody who's good enough with aiming? Well, you have to, force them to shoot for the knee, make it take 1 or 2 shots for the knee, and then, I can see the string of logic for the gameplay that they're trying to go for, to make you feel that pressure, get you to feel that, like, not necessarily like fear, but that sort of sense of tension. That's good. That's really smart design. But it's not smart when you just pivot from that. And I want to say what we're seeing right now, this area, it was a pivot. Right? The marble area where you're going up and down, didn't they just continue with the oil? Didn't they just continue to spawn here?
Yes. Yeah.
And you eventually had to pull out your shotgun with your magic your magic like mushroom to get the F out.
Right. Yeah, the dreaded fountain room, this whole area was nonstop constant spawning, and there's like three components to this. You had the main area where we just came from the gameplay. Then you had the down below.
Oh.
Then you have the area where Ashley has to like draw the bridge for you. That whole area is just nonstop spawning of enemies, and as you can see here, like there are 5 to 7 guys on screen at any given time, and there's no way, there's not enough ammo in the world for that. Now, and I will say, like, the change of the gameplay, I actually wrote down as a positive. Like, as you're saying, it was a more interactive gameplay experience than just tank control, like the classic Resident Evil tank controls. 3 shots to the head, the zombie dies, and you're trying to avoid them. But like you said, this game seems to have a problem with figuring out what it wants to be. Is this a Tomb Raider like action game, or is it a survival horror? And it doesn't do a great job bridging the gap between the two. It kind of gets stuck in between on both areas.
Well, I would actually disagree with that. The problem is it's okay that it goes from one to the other. That's I think that's fine. It, like all of the Resident Evil games have had kind of some camp involved, so it's part of the DNA, I think, already. You and I watched the when I was a little skeptical of that. You had me watch the intro to Resident Evil 1, like the live action video intro,
Yeah.
and it is terrible. It's terrible, but it's great, right? Like, I love stuff like that. I love oh no, I can't think of the movie. It's the Army of Darkness.
Oh, Evil Dead and
Evil Dead,
Army of Darkness.
Evil Dead 2. I love that movie. That movie is amazing. And the reality is the first movie's like 90% horror, 10% humor, and then like it's reversed in the sequel. They straddle the line closer. I think what they needed to do was just have clear delineations. Okay, you've exited horror game and you have entered, you know, 80s action movie. Don't hold back. Don't you don't need to worry about managing your ammo. This is going to be a crazy place. You're going to need to go balls to the wall. And that's basically what happened. Like you died a couple times. You started, you're like, okay, well, screw this. The shotgun is coming out. You're blowing people in half. The guys, you shoot through the guys with the shields, and then that was when like you didn't have a problem. But I
Yeah.
wish that there was a better way that they would like. And I don't, and I give this criticism without a good solution because I don't know what they could do to make you feel that way. Maybe have a counter of how many enemies are like coming after you in like the upper right corner, so you can see that more enemies are being added to give you like context. And that only happens when they're continuously spawning or something like that. But some sort of some way to communicate to the player, you are in never-ending spawn land. Do what you got to do.
Right, and I think like
That's
this
it.
right, like in this scene what we're watching right now, like this is a good example of that because your goal is Ashley to break down the wall and you are
Yeah.
just surviving and
Yep.
managing until that happens. So you're just keeping things down, keeping things managed, keeping things off of her so that she could break through the wall. But yeah,
Yeah.
like the first two rooms, the fountain room, it's like, what the crap am I supposed to do? The first room where we're in the swamp type area, it's like I don't know what's going on until you figure it out, and you're like, oh, okay.
And it's the one and that like that schizophrenia comes up again and again and again. So the lack of communication in the different areas, because that's in effect my complaint with, is it Krueger?
Krauser.
Krauser. I always want to call him Krueger. Freddy Krueger, I guess. Because that's my complaint with Krauser is the ridiculous lead up is not survival horror, and it even like gives him free cheap shot damage on you. That's not like that's what would you call that? Like that's a mixed message from the game about what's going on and what you need to do. And you're gonna drain your resources like getting to the actual boss fight with him. If you
Right.
because I was like, oh, weird, cool. It's like a sniper boss fight. Because it starts out with like he's across the way and he's like shooting you with what I think it was a bow. And then no,
Yep.
well, no, actually, now he's jumped across. He's Superman jumped across now, and he's knife fighting you. And oh, he's gone. Okay. Well then, oh, okay. I guess now you move to a different area, I suppose.
Yeah.
So like, and then three more areas, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Why is this? What is this? What are we doing?
When I was clipping events for this, it was like there are I think I counted 7 or 8 events of that fight, and it's just like when we were going through it, you're like, "What the hell is going on? Is this phase 6 or 7?" Well, yeah, I think there's about 7 or 8 events in that whole sequence. It's nuts.
And that's crazy. Like it's it's I see that as like video game gaslighting, right? Is the fight now? Is it now? Is it now? Is it now? No. Okay, this is the fight. No, it's not. Like what? What do you? What do you? It just it that I that's it's it's like the game is cheating you, and I don't like that feeling. And when like, to be fair, you were the one that actually played the majority of the game. I think we agreed. What was it, like 7 to 10 minutes that I played in all actuality?
Yeah.
But watching, like, if I as an observer, because I don't have to worry about controlling the character. All I have to focus on is watching and like following the narrative, right? And making sure I know what's going on. If I as a bystander no longer know what the hell is happening, how the hell are you supposed to know as the player? You've got way
Right.
more things to worry about with
Yeah.
managing what weapon you're using and bad guys and whatever goal you're actually going for, and maybe having to check the map to make sure you're going the right direction. You're juggling way more things than I am. I just get a watch, and if yeah, so it's just that was probably that and the Salazar fight. Those were probably like the two peak, like I was starting to get warm, my face was starting to get red, like I was getting angry because I felt like uh when I feel like I could have maybe better design for a game as like a layperson, that is upsetting to me. And I felt like, come on, guys, it's don't you don't you know what kind of game you've been making? Like, haven't you figured it out at this point? Don't you know? So
And then I I guess that's why I kind of said they're kind of caught in between.
yeah.
Because the original of this game, it had a very popular multiplayer called Mercenaries, which was very more action oriented. It was, I mean, it was multiplayer. I don't really know what to compare it to, but like multiplayer gun battle and like God of War style, not God of War, Gears of War, kinda
So
before
sort of
Gears of
like
War.
horde, so enemy like you and the other players would survive against enemies, or you'd fight against each other.
You'd fight against each other, but there'd also be
Oh.
like zombies interacting and stuff like that. Um,
Oh, okay.
so, and it seemed like they tried to make the game more action oriented in that respect because the multiplayer was very popular, and people were even upset that they were like, "Yeah, we're not doing mercenaries with this game." Um, but I mean, like I said, positively, I did like the change of pace in the gameplay. Like once we figured out, oh yeah, don't go for headshots, go for limbs, and then do your roundhouse kicks and your Patrick Swayze moves and your back
Don't forget
suplexes
to
and
don't forget to backflip to avoid the
right
knife.
and all that stuff. Like the game became a lot more interactive and it wasn't overly repetitive, except for once we got to the military guys and everything was shoot in the knee, suplex, shoot in the
Yeah.
knee, suplex.
Shooting
Um,
in the heat, they have presumed the position.
yep. But I
Yeah.
did enjoy the overall change in gameplay for the better. Would I say it was masterful? No, but it it was a positive change. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, I I think to deviate away from gameplay, so we're not just talking about that. I think the 10 out of 10, like the perfect portions of this game that I think are just absolutely fantastic. The sorry, you just got like slapped by one of those lumpy things. Uh,
Lumpy
um,
mobs. That's what I call
yeah,
them.
it just looked like it just slapped you on the head and you just go straight to the floor. Uh, the art direction is perfect. It's great. It's gritty. It's creepy. It straddles like it start through the whole thing from the like what would you call them, like the villager houses with the religious iconography and like the sense of history that like this is not a new thing. This has been around for a long time. It's sort of deeply embedded. It's cultural. It's historical, and then all the way through, once you get into research laboratories, once you get into the caves with the creepy like flying bug enemies, all of the art direction is just perfect. It's fab. It's just fantastic. I can't praise it enough. There's so much stuff that they put in there that you might not actually look at, that just makes the world, um even though it's kind of ridiculous, even though, you've got like guys with sacks on their head with like chainsaws,
Yeah.
just like chilling, stomping around. The world feels real. There's lots of just like abandoned stuff. I thought the art direction was fantastic, and then generally speaking, the story or the writing was also really good, with the exception of, and you and I talked about this, and I'll sort of like introduce this point, and I'll let you take it for a while because I don't want to talk forever. Felt like there was more going on with Krauser and Leon than they kind of like put in the game. And I don't know if they were trying to go for like a sort of Dark Souls style where you have to sort of like infer and piece together a story yourself. But it seems like there should be more material on the
Yeah.
relationship between Krauser and Leon. There it seems like there's more meaning there than we are given context for.
Yeah, and usually that exists in these games, the Resident Evil games, where as you're going through the game, you're constantly picking up files, you're finding notes, you're finding pieces that are telling us the background of the story as you're playing through it. But I didn't find that there was as much in this. Like, you had it for Luis, you had it for Sadler, you had it for some of the other characters, but when it came to Krauser, it was kind of like right before his fight. And you got a little bit about him, and then it was just like it was supposed to convey all this emotion and all this meaning, and but it felt almost like little too late.
Well, it just felt like it was cut short because you 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 at least get motivation for him. He was doing like anti-drug, like black ops anti-drug stuff in South America, and he was betrayed by his own government. But like you don't they never there's nothing about the relationship between Leon and him, and they don't really tell you where he and Leon were together and why they were together and why he trained Leon, and like you really have no, you just know that he was a rookie to Krauser sometime in the past, and he's not a rookie now, probably. But like, it just doesn't. They don't tell you. There needed to be something with Leon where it was like, he was in the military before this. He was part of the special forces, and like his trainer in the special forces or he was specially trained in guerrilla warfare, and the person who trained him was Krauser, and so like without something specific like that, without like a special bond that they had to go through, I don't know, you
And
know.
you get like pieces of that, like what we're watching here. Like he's speaking to Leon as if they have a past experience. Like, hey, this is what you were like in training. This is what you were like when you were a rookie. And then at the very end, when you defeat him, he's like, finish the job. I trained you well. And it's like, but where is any of that stuff?
Did he just train him? Did they see action together? Did they go through like that? That's the problem. Like, I have no. He could have been a boot camp instructor and then shipped Leon out, right? That's not like a good enough justification for the interactions in between them, right? So maybe Leon was part of the anti like drug stuff, and he got transferred before everybody got killed. But that doesn't really make any sense if you think about it, because Leon would then be a loose end for all that stuff. So he would need to have been killed as well. And maybe like that's the problem, is they realized the justification, like, it became nonsense. The justification for Krauser's team being killed off really doesn't make sense, since if Leon was part of that team, Leon would also need to be killed off, because Krauser was supposedly dead. He died with his team, but the implication, I mean, they say, they use a weasel word. I'm trying to remember what it was, but like, he's presumed dead or something like that. And it's kind of like, well, of course he's not actually dead. And then, he's a boss fight.
Yeah.
Or I guess then he's a pre-boss fight, and then it goes on. But there needed to be. I felt like it was a. They really ought to have had a cutscene afterwards where Leon talk, and they could have done this with multiple different characters. It could have been done with Ashley. It could have been done with his like assistant. I can't think of her name. Like there's a number of people could be like, why is he talking to Leon? Why is Krauser talking to you like he knows you? You know, do you guys have a past together? And all Leon has to say is something like, we were, you know, we were in special forces together in South America. Things didn't end well. I transferred out. Boom. That tells us that's enough to justify all of it, right? But they don't have it, and it's this weird. I don't know. And maybe I'm being nitpicky. It just felt incomplete. It felt like they made him more important to Leon than we really had any good like justification for it. And without any good way to contextualize it, it just sort of like misses the mark.
Well, no, I think it's a good point because, I mean, we talked about that this fight has 7 different events to it, and you have a pre-fight before
Yeah.
that. Like, it has so much buildup for something that has very little story behind it. Um, there's this intention of emotion and feeling behind this long drawn out encounter that you're having with this guy, but it kind of just it doesn't land its mark because it just feels out of place. It doesn't feel like it has the emotional weight to it that it should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because based off of everything that it leads up to, you would think that this story was about Krauser. For how much time you are spent dealing with this guy in the later half of the game, you deal with him more than Sadler. And Sadler's the end boss. I understand he's the big bad, but
And he has a lot more lore buildup in terms of like
right.
picking stuff up, because all of the bosses also have some sort of like Sadler tie-in as well to contextualize to some lesser or greater degree their relationship to or with Sadler. Because like, well, no, we'll stick with Krauser for now. We can go into Sadler later, but yeah, no, it seemed like there was like lines of dialogue. This makes me wonder if like if there's a Japanese there's Japanese voiceover where there's like it's more there's some offhand remarks that more explicitly infer something, you know, just something simple like, you remember that time in the jungle, or you know, do you remember when, you know, because that's kind of like, the more I think about that lead up, like those 6 or 7 like fucking those 6 or 7 phases that like throw in something. You remember when it was like this, rookie? You remember the fight where the blah blah blah? Remember when we had to survive this way? Remember when so and so died because we, you know, like, give me anything, man. Give me anything. But like, they never say anything like that.
Well, it's like-
It's like they purposely avoid it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, come on, man. Like, give me something here.
It's kind of like the Hawkeye and Black Widow and
Oh,
MCU.
yeah.
Like they're always referencing, what was it, Budapest?
Budapest, yeah.
Something like that. Just something like, remember that nights we shared in Argentina? It's like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Nights you guys shared in Argentina?
Or better yet, like he lost his whole team. He could talk about like, this is, you know, after you left, this is how, you know, this is how Bert died. This is how Lena died. You know, in each phase, like he talks about, like he's telling you people that you know your character knows.
Yeah.
That's enough to tell you these were your teammates as well. And then he can be like, you abandoned us, and then we all died. Like, oh, you think that's just a coincidence?
Or maybe it was even like a mission Leon should have went on with them, but he got picked to go do something else.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. That'd be perfect, right? That'd be great, because then you've got like you could start putting the survivor's guilt onto Leon, because it's obvious Leon's like a pretty serious team player. He's works his tush off for Ashley. So how much would he have worked for
People he trained with and was part of the
combat?
team.
Yeah, fellow combatants. Let's say Ashley's. I wouldn't say useless, but she's pretty close to it. She's
Yeah.
useless adjacent.
We're a team, right?
And
We make a pretty good team.
And well, once she like perfectly like rescues you from the parasite, then like maybe it's just the tech stuff she's real good with. But yeah, and I feel like we should move on because we talked a lot about Krauser, but it's the only big hole I felt in the story. I felt like all of the other bosses had like almost perfect like introductions and through picking stuff up and people talking about him and reading through like the documents and the emails and stuff like that. All of them, even bosses that weren't people, like the what was it, Verdugo? Is that the invincible boss? I guess apparently you can kill that boss, but like they set that boss up perfectly. So, and that boss has no personality. It's just an unstoppable, scary thing.
Yep. Yeah, I've got it so we could discuss each boss, but so you did talk about the fantastical, and so I did want to show this little clip here about the knife parry. Like we talked a lot about this game being kind of in a way
yes,
an 80s action movie.
Yes.
Like being able to your knife can break on the simplest things, yet you can block an entire chainsaw with it. It just was ridiculous. But I also threw this in here because I really liked this puzzle, and this is one that we like messed with for a little bit. But as few as the puzzles were in this game, the ones that they had, I did really like. Because you had to like line up the different pieces of stained glass.
Yes.
With the emblem, and then we got it, and we're like, wait, this is upside down.
Yep.
Gotta completely move it around, but I liked it. It was something I included because I did enjoy the few puzzles that were in this game. Because that's what I like about Resident Evil.
I think they were really smart to have like there are pieces that like the glass goes over. That's because that's really what threw us. It wasn't just that it was upside down. It's not a perfect like overlay. There's stuff that goes underneath, and that totally skews the. It's like I thought it was like the perfect amount of. Maybe misdirect might be a good term, but they also have that clear like it's not that hard to see the shape, so you can start to orient yourself pretty quick. But yeah, no, I'm not typically one for puzzles. Oh, you showed your desktop. You can't do that.
I know.
Oh, again. Oh no.
I was trying to get a timestamp, and it was showing both of my desktops.
Anyways, yeah, but yeah, no, I thought that was a clever, and some of the, I think the worst puzzle was there was, I think it was when it was after the what was it, the giant boss, the worm boss. Was it Delago?
The lake boss or whatever.
Yeah, after the lake boss, you went in and there was like shapes that you needed to find, and then I can't remember what you were supposed to put them under, but like some of the shapes were a little bit too like similar, maybe, but we were able to figure our way through it. It was kind of almost more entertaining with the mistakes that we were making, to be honest. So I enjoyed it, but yeah, they were all engaging, and the nice thing is they didn't pressure. I don't think it would have been appropriate to pressure those with like enemies around, and they definitely like gave you the space to run around, to look around, to explore, to try to find that stuff. It was a perfect okay, I have the time and space to stop and think and analyze
it was
rather
one.
than
Yeah, it was one of those instances where we talked about the game at times didn't telegraph or didn't give enough insight to the player of what you're supposed to do. But in those moments, it's like in those puzzle moments, it was, oh, okay, there's no enemies around here, so it's puzzle time. Like
it's
it's
time to
time
explore.
to
It's time to look around,
yes,
see what you can find. There's going to be an environmental thing to direct you. Yeah.
compared to some of these other issues.
Yeah.
The other gameplay. So one of the while we praise the gameplay, one of the negative gameplay elements that I had of this game was the weapon wheel, and that's what I just had right here. Is that sometimes it wouldn't go the way you would want it. So in the Ramon fight in particular, I kept trying to access the Magnum, but it wouldn't go. It would just keep right here. It would keep sticking on the handgun. I'm like, no, I want the Magnum. I want the Magnum, and it would just keep going back to the to the handgun, and that frustrated me. But that's all I wanted to say on that. The weapon wheel was one of the few things in the game that I felt didn't work right, that was kind of broken and caused issues in the game for me. This is just the minecart. It was silly. This kind of goes back to our discussion about the fantastic elements of this game, the 80s action scene, because this, even while we were playing this, we were making cracks at Temple of Doom and things like that. It's just silly, but it was fine.
Well, and they make it clear you've got the health, like you have infinite ammo for the Magnum. Or no, not the Magnum, for
his Mauser.
His Mauser. That's, I was like, what is the word I'm looking for? You're worried, like that's great. They did a great job. A great job communicating, okay, what am I supposed to be focusing on or going for as a player? It's perfect, right? And this is fun. It's silly. This is some excellent camp. You've got Louise. He's saying funny stuff as this is like he's yelling stuff at you as it goes on. Shoot them. Do that. Change the line. Look out. Those are explosive. And it's funny. It's all funny. I think this may have been one of the parts of the game I enjoyed the most because it was just completely. I did not expect it at all. And it was so. It was just so. Indiana Jones. It's just so Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. It really was. It also slightly made me think of Donkey Kong, but not really.
And it fit within the game, the element of the game, in that you had the bugs. This is where they found like the nests and the bugs and the amber and those types of things. So it wasn't just like out of place either. It was a bit fantastical, but it still fit within the purpose of the game.
Yeah, it goes back to that really, like, and maybe one of the things, and this is something I should mention, it might be that like the design complaints that we have are much more minor, but the rest of the game is executed so well. The other pieces or parts of the game are done so well that these minor gripes feel far larger than maybe they really are. I do think those specifically the two areas we talked about, the I'm trying to think, it was after the first village, when you have that 3 or 4 story like vertical area where they just continuously spawn people. And same with that, like the interior, like palace sort of place. You've got the problem's pretty acute there, but that's about it. I like it's pretty clear everywhere else. I think that they had the bugs continuously respawn, but they had it seemed like they had only 3 bugs could spawn at a time, and it seemed as though they had like some kind of a weight. It's hard to describe. Like there was some sort of maybe it was they had to travel, like wherever they spawned from, they had to travel far enough that it never seemed like they were really overwhelming you. So maybe that was something that they needed. I'm not. Maybe there needed to be more tinkering. I'm not sure. But
No, yeah, the bugs. There were definitely situations and areas where the bugs, kind of kept spawning, kept appearing, but it was done in a way that, like you said, it wasn't overwhelming because I think
I'm
at
thinking of
most
that
I
room that
ever
had the two like mirrored sides,
right, yeah,
and I thought, wow, they did a good job like making sure that there's enough pressure, but it's never like out of whack. You just know there's always going to be a little pressure on you. You got to pay attention.
right, and I think I only ever felt like there was 5 at most, but and they didn't also swarm you at the same time. It was like
Yeah.
they'd kind of hover in the background, they'd kind of swoop in, mess with you, jump on the ground, do whatever. But it was always manageable. It never felt like was sometimes with the villagers or other like the military guys where it was just like, oh my gosh, I need to run and I can't handle this.
Yeah. 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 The military guys were really crazy until um until the helicopter. I do kind of remembering the military, although there was weird safe areas. I remember you running away, like trying to
Yeah.
bait them into a turret, and they just all bailed after you went through like a doorway around the corner. And I was like, "What the heck?"
Yeah. Yeah, there were like leashing moments where they would stop engaging and turn around. Um but this is getting into the boss areas, which we had bosses that were definitely positive and we had bosses that were pains in the rear. This one I would say was a perfect boss. Not that it was super hard or super easy or anything like that, but it just was perfectly designed for you to execute as a player. You had unlimited harpoons. You still had to avoid. You had a life bar on your boat, and you couldn't run into the stuff that it's dragging you through. I don't know. It was a well crafted, well executed boss.
I think this is my number two boss. Oh man, I think that's my number two boss because it's I completely agree with you. I think Sadler is my number one because I just think he's such a great capstone, like escalation after all the stuff that you've seen and done. He's big like Delago is, and he's sort of overwhelming, but he's got that weird monstrous like human thing. Delago's obviously just a giant whatever it is.
Catfish, salamander. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, right. It's whatever it is. It's an animal, and like there's only to some degree there's only like animals can only be so scary because it's like they just want to eat, and eventually they're going to be like, "Ouch, too many ouch. I don't want goodbye," or they die. Whereas Sadler's like, there's the terrible. He's choosing to do this to people. He's choosing to take away people's free will, to take, oh, we'll get rid of war and hunger and all this other stuff. You just have to give up any kind of individuality. That's all it takes, bro.
To be perfect, you just have to give up everything.
Yeah, exactly, right? No drawback, no big drawback, right? So, um, and really, I think after looking through the bosses, there's only a few bosses I really didn't like. Um, all of the bosses I either thought were solid or um, all of the bosses were solid. I liked Delago. I liked El Gigante, the giant. I liked there was some problems with gosh, what was his name? Bitores, the
Yep.
priest, the giant priest guy.
Scorpion guy.
Yeah, so there was some confusion about what on earth was going on with him.
Yeah, all the monster fights seemed fine. It was the human fights that were problematic, that were unclear what needed to be done, too many phases.
I would add Salazar to that, but yeah, because my two least favorite fights are both of the Krauser fights, where I just thought I hated them. I hated how long they took. I hated that they seemed to come out of nowhere. I hated that there especially for the second, there was the 6 or 7 freaking phases leading you up.
Yeah.
I hated the fact that you like have to go through multiple areas, and then he pops out and he's like, "Rookie, blah blah blah, cutscene," and then the cutscene ends, and you're just standing there in the fucking open, and he just pulls out like a submachine gun and just like, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?"
Oh yeah.
Like the game basically just made you take damage you couldn't avoid. F you.
Uh-huh.
But Salazar. The Salazar fight, I think, is the worst because I think it suffers. I can at least say that those 2 fights, the actual boss fights themselves, were designed well enough. They just seemed kind of oddly out of place, right? Because you figured out like they did a good job of teaching you, especially in the first fight, the prompts to respond to his attacks, whether or not you needed to dodge, or whether or not you needed to parry. Like, because I think by like the second attempt on the first Krauser fight, like you basically had it like down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first Krauser fight took me 3.
Oh, it took you 3. Oh, whoops. Pardon me. And then the second Krauser fight seemed pretty easy once you knew what was going on. So you could at least figure out what was going on, but there's nothing to figure out with the Salazar fight. It was just, he's too fast.
Yep.
He's leaving mines. He has like a ranged attack he can hit you from anywhere with. And it's unclear whether or not you need to be like shooting that gross like
for weak
puny body.
spots.
Yeah. So it's like it suffers from all of the other problems, and then on top of all of that, it seems like you have this like, it wants it to be an 80s action, but how are you supposed to effectively fight the boss when you don't know when or how to deal damage effectively? And then that just makes the boss fight feel like it goes on maybe for too long.
Yep.
How do you tell? How do you know?
And he's got an
hit you.
instant death mechanic.
That's right. He does the bite. I forgot about that. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying he has an instant death. So on top of everything else, he's too fast. You don't know when. It's not clear when he takes the most damage. On top of all that stuff, he can also kill you in a single hit, which is just rough to deal with all that combined. So, yeah, for those watching, you're probably listening to some Benny Hill music right now because it's just a lot of running around, a lot of getting whacked by his stupid mechanic. He also has 1.5 million mechanics. The acid spray, like you talked about, the one shot eat you. He does the diving plunge, the mine, the acid mines that he leaves on the ground all over the place. He can also just shoot acid bullets at you. So it's just yeah, by far this was probably my least enjoyable fight because it just was a big pain in the butt. A lot of running around.
And it does seem like they knew that there was problems with this fight because, well, he has that insta-kill. Like, if you actually watch, like, his acid attacks do, like, so little damage to you. Like, they do bare fragments of damage. So it's like, it's almost like they're like, yeah, sorry, this is unfair. We're barely gonna do any damage to you, but also you can shoot it from like anywhere and hit you. And he does like an arc spray that you like can't avoid, and there's no way you can get behind something to avoid it because of like how quickly he can get in position and then unleash that attack. So it's almost like they knew, they just couldn't figure out how to fix it. Which,
yeah,
boo, I say.
Yeah, and this was the fight I struggled with the weapon wheel because we just saw I threw a flash grenade and tried to switch to the Magnum while it was dazed and confused, but nothing. It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't work. It made me mad. Yeah, I mean that's a good point that the boss itself, apart from his one shot, didn't do a ton of damage. I think his like, if he swung and actually hit me, like if he did his dive bomb attack, that did some damage. But yeah, his acid mines didn't do much. His acid spray didn't do much. It was just avoid getting eaten.
Yeah.
And I still died. I don't know. I think this was like a 7
5 or 6. Oh wow, yeah. Wow.
Fight.
Okay.
So yeah, he was a pain. He was a pain in the rear. That's for sure. But yeah, like you said, he moves way too fast. You as the player, your controls are not as fast as he is. Now the mines that they put on the ground was a way to give you back ammunition, but it almost kind of goes into the problem that this boss has of when are you supposed to damage it, because it seems like the game is giving you kind of grace into, well, you're probably gonna waste a lot of resources on this guy, so we're gonna constantly feed you handgun ammo.
Yeah, I can't think of the last game that I felt so much relief. None of the bosses in Elden Ring gave me the relief. Playing the game gave me the relief that I felt when you beat Salazar, because I was mad. I was angry because I felt like it was unfair. It was unfair. It wasn't fun. It wasn't like, the challenge needs to be apprehendable. Like you need to know how to progress. But it's not like in Elden Ring. There's maybe I shouldn't even use Elden Ring as a specific example, but in Souls games in general, there's usually more than one way to skin a cat, and you need to either identify either weak points or weak times where there's a large cooldown. There are windows where it is more advantageous for you to attack, or maybe you need to go. Maybe you can't stop yourself from taking too many hits, so you got to go. You level a little bit. You gain a level or two. You get some more strength. There are options that you can do. There's nothing that you can. The problem is with this. There's nothing you can do. It's not like, how do you know? Are you not doing enough damage? Who knows? You can't tell. Are you attacking at the wrong time? Who knows? There's not really any way to know. You can't tell if you're dealing damage or not. I didn't see any clear delineation between phases, and maybe I wasn't paying attention. That's entirely possible. You would be able to speak better to that because you were actually playing the game. But I didn't see anything that clearly delineated any phase after taking so much damage. Whereas like that clearly was the case for just about every other boss fight where there was multiple phases that had like damage, preconditions. Bitora's being like a great example. I think most of the rest of the fights, you just knew you were dealing damage. You didn't necessarily know, because obviously in the first El Gigante fight, you just know that you've dealt damage because you've damaged the giant parasite sticking out its back. So you can at least know I've gotten him like 4 times or 5 times. but yeah, I just I hated there was no way to develop a strategy. There was no good way to tell what you were doing wrong. And if you can't tell what you're doing wrong, what are you supposed to do to adjust? How are you supposed to adjust
Right.
to make your next attempt better?
And they could have done that easily with an emote or something. Like if you're shooting at it when you're not supposed to, Leon could be like, "Oh, my bullets aren't getting through its
Yeah.
armor," or something like
It's
that.
not doing anything.
Yeah, my weapons are basically useless. Or have the monster Ramon be like, "You think
Laugh.
those puny bullets
Yeah,
are gonna
exactly. Yeah,
damage
yeah.
me," or something like that? To be like, "Okay, this is not when it's time to attack. I need to wait for an opportune moment." Then you shoot his fleshy baby section, and it's like, "Ouch, ouch, ouch." Okay, now I know when to attack it. But yeah, and we tried multiple different things on that fight. Like, okay, let's unload the magnum into it. Well, that didn't seem to do much. Let's unload the shotgun into it. Well, that didn't seem to do much. Let's get it into a weakened state and stab it in the eyeball. Okay, it's been 4 times. Did that do anything? Not really. So it could just be, and I think we even mentioned this during the gameplay. It could have been you have to pump enough damage into it to get to a final knife stabby stab to end the battle, but there was no way of knowing.
And that would be definitionally bad mechanics. If that's the mechanic that's going on, you need to let players. There needs to be some way to communicate to players, because like with the with Bitores, I'm trying to remember. Did you kill him with a knife, or did you just like? Oh no, you did kill him with a knife. Nope, that's the second. That's the second phase. Never mind. So I don't remember if you killed him with a knife or if you just pulled out a shotgun and just unloaded on him. Because I remember we thought for a long time for him in his second phase, what you were supposed to do was like clearly you were supposed to blow up the barrels that he grabs,
Yep.
and that didn't seem to be the case. Even though that seemed to be the way it was. No, you pulled out your shotgun and you just unloaded into his face when he was like down below, I think, or hanging in front of you. And I was like, and we were both like, oh, well, okay. But that at least had clear enough mechanics. You knew how to evade damage from him. Because obviously blowing up the barrels, you needed to stop him from throwing the barrels at you one way or the other. So you blow him up either way. But yeah, like, and I don't want to make this. I don't want this to sound like all of the mechanics need to be like laid out in front of us neatly and cleanly and clearly. There needs to be an there needs to be a 3 to 10 page explanation, but there needs to be like some sort of context clues for players. And I don't think there was any context clues that I could find with Salazar. I almost feel like we should try Googling to see if there's some sort of tactic you ought to use, but it seems I can't think of any. It doesn't seem to matter where you go, he can get to you. It doesn't matter. There is no place he can't shoot his acid at you. There is no place he can't bite you.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we even had that one section where he like inverted on himself and swallowed me whole.
Oh, that's
Because I was
right.
behind him, like reloading, and he like went through himself and swallowed me.
That's right. I remember that. That was disturbing. That was funny too, but yeah. No.
Yeah, see,
I
like right there, we just brought out the shotgun, took him out, and that was the end of Bitores.
Yep.
I'm trying to look to see if there's anything regarding. Let's see. Blah blah blah.
is there anything? I'm also wondering if there's anything else we should give props, because it was the graphics and the area design are really absolute. Those are 100% masterpiece. Like no doubt. Um, the
Yeah.
gameplay is good to great, but there are definitely some lows that are just good, where it's frustrating. It's unclear what you're supposed to do. There isn't proper communication, and then the bosses are, other than the three bosses, which is really one boss twice and then a different one. The bosses are pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our complaints on the bosses were simply Ramon, Barbara Washington, uh, but Torres a little bit, but not as bad as the others. Like if we were to rank worst fights top to bottom, it'd probably be Ramon, Krauser 2. Krauser 1 was just kind of a snooze fest, but
Yeah.
Ramon, Krauser 2, Krauser 1, but Torres? And then everything else was fine because
I think it'd be a toss up between Bitoras and Verdugo, because but that is definitely, I generally don't like mechanics like that.
where you can't do anything, you just gotta wait it out.
Exactly. However, I felt like they did give you they did give you the things that you needed to make that a tolerable fight. I thought Bitora's got great build up, and it was a great reveal when he finally takes his coat off. Like that was a really horrific, and he like stretches out, and then like his lower body just falls off for the second phase. I would say I think I like the Bitora's fight, actually. I think I might put it above. Um, I would rank it fairly high personally. But I also think that's tied in with the character and the build up and the creepy giant Spanish priest. Like, you know, there's some personal preference in terms of like, I like the direction they went with that guy. That was some good design. That was some good voice work. That was some good monster reveal. Big guy in a trench coat it's also calling back to Mr. X in a way in the previous games. Or I shouldn't say calling back, but it's reminiscent. Like, just smart design. Man, you are just like getting wailed by Verdugo.
Yeah.
I can't believe how many hits you're taking.
No, but yeah, so like I think with Batores in particular, like once, even though it wasn't clear what you were supposed to do, because we abandoned the barrel stuff, we just unloaded him with damage, but his mechanics weren't, it wasn't as hard of a manageable fight, I guess, than Ramon's bullshit.
Yeah, well, the majority of his attacks were at least avoidable,
Yeah.
right? He would throw the logs at you, and it was clear. It was very, there was very clear when he was switching between throwing stuff at you. He would come in, and he would come in close, and he wouldn't attack you immediately. He would have to travel to you through one thing, so you knew, okay, he's jumped forward. He's gonna do some kind of a melee attack. The question is he gonna attack from like farther away or closer? You could prepare. Usually, I think what you did was you jumped down, if memory serves, sometimes to avoid the attacks above, or if he was attacking from below, you would knife parry, right?
Yeah, if I was up top and he was down below, like he would attack you with his tentacles, so you could knife parry or do your backflip over him. And then when he would, there was some events where I would use the ladder to avoid it. Like I think it's when he would jump charge you when you were down below. You could use the ladder to like basically ignore that mechanic, and then he would come back and start swinging his claws and stuff at you. But him in particular, it was far more of a learn the mechanics and then deal with it versus whatever the hell Ramon was. And looking at it, it just says, looking at a guide, it just says, after enough damage, Ramon will fall. Run over to him and stab him in his glowing eyeball. That's it. just says damage. That's it.
So useful, so descriptive, so clear.
Yeah. But yeah, so all the monster fights were great in my opinion, because like even this one with the double Gigantes, you're dealing with two, but Luis is helping you. He's kind of distracting things, allows you to focus on one. You know right off the bat what you're supposed to do. Oh, there's a grate that you can open, and I'm gonna drop the giants in them. How do I
Well,
do
and
that?
and they don't. I'm trying to remember. They don't immediately. It's not two immediately, right? It's just the normal one, and then it's the second one, or is it both? Is it two right off the bat from go?
Here right off the bat.
Okay, okay.
But I thought they did just a fine job, telling you what needed to happen, and it was manageable.
No, I think they trained you really, really well with like how to deal with it. Because didn't you fight? You fight a normal giant. Or,
Yep.
well, normal. you fight a giant, then you fight an armored giant, and then like that's the progression, isn't it? And then you fight the two at the same time.
Yep.
So they teach you how to do it before you get there. So you already, and that's some excellent, exquisite game design where they teach you and they up the ante each time. That builds the stakes, that builds the the electronic arts patented sense of pride and accomplishment. And it's fun. Like that's the kind of campy, over the top, like there you go. That's the kind of like fun 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 mechanics, good execution. They show you how. This is something that Dark Souls is like perfected. Is they are very, very good at teaching you, giving you the skill tools to accomplish everything that you need to. And they did a great job in this. And it makes me sad that they didn't do like that's not, what is that for Salazar? There isn't anything that I'm aware of. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. Maybe somebody else could correct us on this. But
Well, I mean, according to a boss guide, it just says keep blasting away until he falls down, and then stab him with the. But even there,
we need that soundbite. Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Damage the boss until he dies?
Right.
That is a new strategy.
Because I think even in the kill shot, I stabbed the eyeball 4 times, which that's not typical. Like usually you weaken it, you get it to a weakened state, you do it 3 times, 5 times, however many times it is, and you win. But 4 seems like a strange number. It just seems like you do enough damage to the boss, it will get to a weakened state where you stab it in the eyeball and it's dead. But the eyeball stabbing is like a brief moment where you could do a little extra damage until you reach this hidden number that you need to get to.
Yeah, I would love to hear like how I would love to know like behind the scenes gameplay if like weapons do, you know what I mean? Like depending on how upgraded they are, they do X numbers of damage. The bosses have X numbers of hit points. Stab in the eye does X damage.
Right.
And like, maybe your shotgun blast does like 30 damage, but like a stab to the eye does like 150. The boss has, I don't know, 1,500 hit points or 1,000 hit points or something like that. Because that makes a certain amount of sense, right? But then the efficient way to do it would be, you go for the eye stab, right? The eye stab is a lot more damage, and this is broadly speaking, generally this is a survival horror game. So if you can do 150, if you can do a bunch of bonus damage or extra damage without having to expend resources, yeah, go for it. But I still don't know if I still don't know if it's better to just keep shooting. Maybe shooting the eye is better. Is the eye a weak point, or does the act of stabbing the like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know if you need to do the like the what do you call it? The animation where you stab the eye, that's how you get the bonus damage. Because I remember there was a couple of times you tried shooting the eye. What was it? You tried
Oh,
shooting the eye with like the magnum or something like that?
yes. Like getting it to the weakened state and then trying to bring out the magnum to shoot him down. Like do more damage that way rather than stabbing it.
Hmm.
But it, well, even like throwing the flashbangs and trying to weaken it, um, didn't seem to do much either. But uh, yeah, enough talking about how bad the Ramon fight is. Let's talk about Sadler.
Could talk about it for
Because
days.
I mean we could.
We could.
But Sadler, like one thing that is fairly common in Resident Evil games, at least in my opinion, the end bosses tend to be kind of like a wet fart. Just they don't live up to the end of the game. You look at Resident Evil 8, you look at Resident Evil 7, 6. I don't even remember what the last boss in 5 was, 2, 3, etc. I don't even remember what the last boss in 1 is at this moment in time. But Sadler was one that made sense, fit well, was not, because a lot of times when you get those kind of BS mechanic bosses like a Ramon, where you don't know what's damaging him, you don't know where you are in the fight, usually is that last boss. But Sadler, he's got a bunch of eyeballs. You know right off the bat, oh, I need to shoot the eyeballs because that will weaken him. And then you stab him, and you win. It was just a well tuned fight.
Yeah, I think literally the only, and I don't even know if it's fair to say it's a complaint. I'm almost more curious. Is obviously the phase. Would you call it phase 3? Because it seems like there's two phases initially with him where you're just dealing with him, you damaging him normally. I think it's once you like hurt, quote unquote, hurt the like 2 of the eyeballs. Then he is it 2 or 3. Then he falls off, and then he comes back, and it's just unclear. I'm be curious to know. Do you just have to wait a certain amount of time before Ada tosses you
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
rocket launcher? But it's not bad. At that point, it's the final boss. Who cares? Unload everything you got. You don't need it.
And
But I love this boss because his like insta kill, it makes sense. His entire body landed on you.
yeah,
You just got crushed by a few tons of weight. Of course, you died.
yeah.
That's fair. His jump isn't quick. He doesn't do like it's pretty. It's like it's a long jump. It's telegraphed. You know what's happening. Like I just yeah no I thought this was theatrical, dramatic, gross, and he had a lot of great mechanics. I really liked that he could summon enemies by like singing. It's so like inhuman and weird when he like calls to the bugs. Ugh.
And not are you there's a lot going on in this fight too, but it doesn't overwhelm you as a player. You've got I hate bosses with ads, but in this it wasn't overwhelming. In this, he'll jump up on the tower and summon the ads, and you have to deal with the ads and him. Not only that, like we saw that you activate the bridge. One of my deaths was being too slow on the bridge.
Oh
And
yeah,
the
that's
bridge
right.
comes back down and it'll instantly
yeah.
kill you. So you have to interact with the environment. He destroys chunks of the platform, so you have to navigate it differently as the
Yep.
fight progresses. You have, because he's breaking it right now. So you have ads, you have environment that is changing. Instant death from the boss, instant death from the environment. Uh, but it seemed completely manageable from a player aspect.
Yeah, they seemed like challenges rather than and to be honest, I feel like it was pretty obviously telegraphed. Because I remember as soon as I saw that little split bridge, I was like, "Oh man, you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna like destroy parts of this thing, and then you're gonna have to like deal with the fact that you have to go a specific way." And sure enough, and the other thing is like there are mechanics, the ads, as annoying as they are, aren't they weaker versions? Either they're weaker versions or your weapons are powerful enough at this point, because it seems like you can one shot them with your pistol.
Yeah, I think they
Um,
took like 1 to 2 shots, but it wasn't it. The, normally, I think they took about 3.
and yeah, so I'm not sure if they're weaker or you're stronger, but like it seemed obvious to me that the like really the purpose of the ads was to get you items. Like
Resource replenishment, yes.
yeah, and so I was like, that's clever. That's it. Not only is it clever, it's makes sense in game. Like he's connected to them. I like smart. I like it when there's something in a game that pulls many things together again, and that's what
No more
that's what I
overly
felt.
aggressive.
Yeah. Some of them would stay back. It seemed like there may have been some sort of rule where like they're only supposed to only two or three are supposed to attack you at a time. Um, I'm not sure. That's just me, spitballing. But I just I don't know how it was to play this, and maybe you can talk about like how you felt actually going and playing the game. But I loved watching this fight. It was great.
No, yeah, like I said, like everything was manageable. Like I I hate bosses with ads, but this one, the ads stayed back. They weren't, because imagine trying to like aim and focus on eyeballs when you have 3 to 5 bugs constantly like dive bombing you. That'd be freaking insane and really impossible to navigate. Not only is he acid spraying, which I was not very good at dodging, I should be ducking there, but it made sense and it fit as far as the flow of the fight. The shotgun, yet again in this fight, was the MVP because like 3 shots of the shotgun got you to a weakened state where you could stab him, but there was a bit of running, but it was to give yourself space, to give yourself time to line up your next shots, and he could close those distances pretty quick. And he seemed to have a lot of open areas where you could get shots in, and it wasn't like constantly, okay, I gotta dodge the spit, I gotta dodge the ads, I gotta dodge this, I gotta dodge that, and you only have a, like the Ramon fight where you didn't have a ton of opportunities to get shots in, as we saw where I was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Whereas this, run around, he jumps, you take a couple shots, you run around, he jumps, or he charges at you, you take a couple shots. There were plenty of opportunities to get your shots in.
Maybe that might be a better way to phrase the problem with the Ramon fight is I feel like the cooldowns of the boss's like abilities, what you're describing with Sadler, he doesn't just like jump, then jump, then jump, then jump, then jump. It seems like there's a cooldown, and maybe they've had it set up so there's like multiple conditions that need to be met before Sadler will perform one of these. You need to be so far away. He hasn't, he's already summoned dads, or because I'm not sure how they set up the AI with this, but it seems like he doesn't just instantly jump to you. You have to get pretty far away.
Mm-hmm.
you have to. But with Salazar, it seemed like they needed to have. So he needed to jump to a new spot. Like he needed to have that because you'd run away and he'd jump to where you were. Then you'd run away and he'd jump to where you were. Then you'd run away and he'd jump to where you were. And then you run away. Like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, he was constantly just at your backside.
Yeah, you can't strategize. You can't. There's no way to like fight that, especially when he's got an instant kill. But with Sadler, you've got enough space, but it's not like you can just pump lead into him, right? Obviously you need to target these smaller. You need to target the not smaller, but like the weak areas. You need to target the eyes. So they actually encourage you to. Well, if you're going to use the shotgun to stay closer, I suppose you could have rifles and other things that let you snipe from farther away. But it gives you multiple options on how you want to go about defeating the boss.
Mhm.
Whereas I don't feel like you have any options with Salazar. I don't know what the heck they expect you to do with him, because he's always right there. And maybe that's not how it's supposed to be. Maybe
we
had
played
bad
it
luck.
completely wrong.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Like there's a possibility that games have weird bugs. I doubt he was supposed to be able to go through his own body to eat you. That seems like a glitch of some kind, So maybe that's a bad luck death. I also feel like you had a bad luck death with Salazar, where I think you accidentally ran right to where he was jumping and it killed you. So you were like right underneath him, and
Yeah.
but because that it seemed pretty obvious, like that was an error you had made. Maybe it wasn't frustrating. It didn't feel unfair. It didn't feel sucky. You were like, oh, whoops, that was the wrong decision.
Yep.
So it felt like you had options and paths and decisions that you could make. You could learn. You could strategize. And that's the fun, right? It's you want a challenge. The problem it's not that Salazar is challenging is the problem. It's that there doesn't seem to be anything you're supposed to do about it.
And while we had many attempts at that boss, we tried different things, but it didn't seem like anything changed.
Yeah.
And that was largely the problem is, okay, let's try the Magnum.
I forgot that your final like stab on Sadler was like you had to teleport through him. That's funny. Anyway, sorry. And that was a total.
Yeah, I'm going to go back a little bit because I don't want to spoil our bear trap montage. But
yes.
Yeah, it just was. We tried unloading with the Magnum. We tried unloading with the shotgun. There was one attempt where I went through all of my ammo besides all I had left was handgun. And it didn't seem like it changed anything. And then there was an attempt where we just got the win. I couldn't tell you what the difference was.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Because it's just not clear what was doing better damage at that point in time. Absolutely ridiculous. But so any final thoughts before we get into our bear trap montage?
I would say if we were to assign arbitrary numbers, I would assign a high arbitrary number. Not the highest, but a high arbitrary number.
Well, yeah, without putting a point value on it, this is not a bad game. It's not a terrible game. It's better than a good game. I would say this was a good to great game, but not a masterpiece. Not something that is worth the coveted highest number that you can give it or the highest praise that you can give it. There are definitely excellent things about this game, but there are things that, in my opinion, keep it from putting it on the same level as like other games that are deemed like the best of a generation or best of a decade or best of a year, anything like that. Like people are talking about this game as game of the year. I don't see how this is game of the year. I just don't.
Yeah, no, I don't see that. I don't know how you'd have a remake. Just in general, I don't know how you'd have a remake. It's possible with a like a full remaster. So I could see that being possible, but I feel like it's unlikely. Um, but I would say, what's a good way? Like if I had an alliterative, a three shot alliterative. If atmosphere, aesthetic, and art direction are things that matter to you a lot in a game, I would say all of those things are done. Those are some of the best things that are done in this game. Um, if if you want a pure survival horror game, this isn't really a pure survival horror. It slides into action harder the longer it goes. But I would say, like, uh, after watching you play it, I'm tempted to buy it because um, it just it just seems like a good game. There are some masterpiece parts to this, the direction, the aesthetic, and the atmosphere, but it's held. I think it's held back by some of the direction that they go in the gameplay and some of the a little bit of incomplete story, possibly. That may be more subjective than others,
But even
yeah.
compared to like other Resident Evil remakes, like I preferred 2 over this one. I thought Resident Evil 2 remake was was a better remake, was a better game like redo than this was. If I were to like compare, okay, they've done 2 remake, they've done 3 remake, they've done 4 remake, they've done 1 remake. 2 is probably my favorite.
I have to agree, but that's because of the like the 500 and 1500% facial animation exaggeration videos that have come out that have literally caused me to lose part of my sanity from laughing so hard. So which just isn't really a material reason to make any judgment, but
because
but yeah,
even there,
no.
they took the story, and to be honest, like I couldn't give you a full play-by-play of the original story. It seems like this game kept it very, very much close to the original, but for 2, it seemed like they kind of expanded on it. Like with you're talking about with the 400% exaggeration, like you have that interaction with the cop in the original game, but it's very brief compared to the interaction you have with him in the remake. It's a full, complete, like,
they expanded it.
Story element.
They didn't just remake it. They expanded it.
Right.
Yeah.
But
no, it's hard to tell if they've done that here. It doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't.
But yeah, that you need to do a harder. What would you call it? Like to like comparison, I suppose. And I'm ignorant because I remember looking at the original graphics and I was like shocked. I didn't realize that it was so much. I didn't realize how long ago this game came out originally. Which
you
is
mean
one of the
the
reasons.
original 4?
The original 4, yeah. I like the graphical upgrade, the fidelity, to use big, cool words, is huge. Really is actually quite huge. Which is cool. But it's weird. We won't go into that. It's interesting how your memory plays tricks on you.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember it looking that bad. But
well, and at the time, I mean, it was
visual proof is that's how much better the new game looks.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, at the time, it was as just about as like that
about
was
as good as it gets.
As good as graphics were at the time.
Yeah.
So
well, I think I would recommend this game I would recommend this game to most people. If you have as somebody who didn't even play it, but if you have if you think this looks interesting, if this looks like it would appeal to you, it probably will be fun. Know that you're going to have a couple of wonky. There's going to be some interesting stuff. Weapon switches might be a little might be a little bit unreliable. Can't you, if you really want to, switch
through your
through the
inventory.
pause menu? Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's very, obviously this is slow. It's not as efficient, but it might be the safer way to go. And then don't expect clear story on Krauser and your relationship, but otherwise, you've got a great game with a great story, creepy atmosphere, creepy storytelling, good, like I would say the writing that they made, that they like wrote out for you to read, the materials that you find. There was the eventual Umbrella connection that I was hoping for. So yeah,
I will
I
say though, like
recommend.
I agree with everything you said. I would recommend this game. But if you're looking for a modern good survival horror game, I'd recommend 2 Remake. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I maybe a good way to put it is, like, it does seem as though some of the mechanics are dated, and there really isn't a good way to maintain the integrity of the way they made the game that they're remastering. There just isn't a good way to bring that into the modern day, because of how slow you aim.
Yeah.
There's a requirement of the slowness of your aiming with the pressure of the enemies, and then not being able to take care of them with headshots. It's sort of this like trifecta that really, each part hinges on the other, and it does feel kind of contrived, I guess. Maybe that's a good way to put it.
And 2 Remake still had that tension, that horror aspect that I feel this one lost a little bit.
Yeah.
It didn't have the same level. Like, you still had gore, you still had creepiness, you still had horror like aspects, but it was more like a what's that movie? It's more gore and gruesome than fear or horror. Hostel, like a Hostel horror movie where it's just about gore and gruesomeness rather than a scary element of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's wrap this up with a little bear trap montage. So I counted, I think we ran into 18 bear traps in total during our playthrough. So I spliced them all together so that we could enjoy them in their glory all together. So that was right at the beginning of the game where Leon was still wearing a jacket.
Yep. The best way to disarm a bear trap is to step in it, grunt a lot, and then open it.
And
then have your leg magically heal like nearly instantaneously.
Yep. My wife pointed out, she goes, every time you stepped in one, you were like aiming or just about like aiming at something, interacting with an enemy, and then you step right into it. And then there are a couple others, I think like the one that we just saw, and also this one. She goes, how did you walk into that? How did you not see that? I'm like, I was worried about the door.
Yeah, you're looking like that's the bear trap is a great tool, because I almost want to like do another brand new stream where we play through this again and we know, and to see like, okay, can you actually, see, right, it's in the middle. How do we find that?
Which
To
one?
see if I think I'm a little bit behind you. To see if like, can you use those against enemies? Are the enemies smart enough to avoid them, or can you bait enemies into that? Like, because I kind of suspect, like, if you're actually smart, you can trick enemies into the same thing once you know what you're looking for and you got a sense for where they are.
Yeah.
But
So yes, there. I didn't include it, but there is one instance where an enemy walked into a bear trap. So that did actually happen. Where
1 to 18, those are not good numbers.
yeah, because
Oh,
he was. It was a room where there were mines, and so we were trying to lure the enemy into triggering one of the laser mines, and he stepped in a bear trap as well, on his way to blowing himself up. So it
that's
can
amazing.
happen, but we were not very efficient at it.
Yeah, we were scrubs.
Yeah. Well, that is our review of Resident Evil 4 Remake. Overall, I think we did enjoy the game. We did say overall it was positive. Um, but we wouldn't give it as much esteem praise as some of the other journos and others that have given reviews on this game would give it, because we did see some flaws. While they were few, they were there.
Yeah, there were some things that held it back from being a masterpiece. And gameplay, I don't know if you can have a masterpiece with gameplay not being just fabulous all the way through.
Yeah.
They're called video games. If you don't get the gameplay on it the whole game, it sort of, there's lots of things that are forgivable, but I think gameplay is one of the ones where it's just you just can't get away from it.
Yep.
You gotta deliver there. It's the one thing Nintendo always delivers on.
Always delivers on. Yep. I
Never fail.
it's very rare to have a Nintendo game be broken.
I say that as somebody who like hasn't beaten a Nintendo game in 20 years. Their gameplay is always amazing.
It's true.
So
Yeah. I just finished Tears of the Kingdom. I don't think there are things that I dislike about it. There are things that I'm not a fan of, but I can't point to any one thing in that game that is broken or that doesn't work. And I don't know if I can say that about any recent Nintendo game. Mario Odyssey, Metroid Dread. I play a lot of them. Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. There's a lot of Nintendo games that I play, but I can't point to anything that is broken or doesn't work. They perfect their games before they come out. So, testament to Nintendo. But this is not a review on Nintendo. This is a review on Resident Evil 4 Remake. But yeah, we both recommend the game. We think it's a good game. Great game. Some may even say it was a great game, but not a perfect game. So, if you haven't played it yet, give it a go.
And speaking of great games, next week,
Yes.
again, same time, we'll be starting at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Baldur's Gate 3. He and I, Toddler and I will be doing a playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3. He'll be leading. He's never played. I've played probably a good 50, 60 hours. Excited to watch him learn how to get through all of the different systems, all the different options that you have, all the different things you can discover. It's going to be good. Great game. It's going to be a fun player experience, I think, for me, and I think it'll be a fun experience to watch too.
And the goal is to not have the first entire stream episode be me creating a character. I am not one that tries to spend a lot of time on that character creation screen, but we'll see what happens. Who knows?
Maybe we should do that first. Maybe we should get it out of the way before the stream.
That's true. That's possible. Yeah.
My girlfriend definitely spent what I would describe as an inordinate amount of time, and God help me, so did I on my character. So
I think it was Bloodborne. I think Bloodborne was the one time I spent the most time creating a character. It was like over an hour, and I created my character to look like the Joker.
Oh.
So he had a super, super long chin.
You might have to load that up and show it to me sometime if you still got the save.
I believe I do. Yes.
That's fantastic.
But yes, next week, 6 o'clock PST. We're moving from the Sunday matinee to the Sunday nightcap time. It just works better for family and wintertime. Kids aren't going to be able to hang out outside. So we will be moving to 6 o'clock PST, Baldur's Gate 3, and experiencing some. That's the game with Bear Love and Ogre Love, right? Right. That's the one.
Bear Love and Puny Rutting, I think, is what
Okay.
what you're referring to.
Okay. But yes, so next week, Baldur's Gate 3. Hope to see you there. Hope you enjoyed our review of Resident Evil 4 Remake and gave you some insight whether or not to play this or not.
Yeah.
But thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Take it easy.
Have a good night, everybody.